GDP. We all know that GDP is an economic growth indicator of a country. We might heard media saying we had a 2% drop down, or we had a 2% growth rate in GDP when it compared to last year. But the fact is, most of us don't know what does this really mean, or how a GDP is calculated, or what are the factors included in this one. Today, what I'm trying here is to explain everything about GDP and to make sure nobody left behind without knowing what is GDP really means. Let's look at the definition first. The definition says GDP is the market value of all finished goods and services produced within a country in a year or a specific period of time. To get a clear picture of this definition, we must need to take three words out: finished goods, produced goods, and within a country. Once we understand these three words, that means we know what GDP means. First one, finished goods. Let me tell you an example here. I'm walking into a supermarket. I'm buying an apple, taking it to my home, and I'm not going to sell it out. I'm just using it for my own purpose. I might make an apple pie with that, or I'll eat it by myself. So in that case, what happened in that supermarket is a final sale of that product. That means it's a finished goods. Once at that point of sale from that supermarket, the value of the apple will be added to the GDP. But let's assume I'm not the final consumer of the apple. I was a restaurant guy. I'm a restaurant owner. I'm going to buy the same apple from the same supermarket. I'm taking it to my restaurant, and I'm making an apple pie with that one and selling it to the customer. In that case, the apple which I bought from supermarket will not be added to GDP. But once I've taken it to my restaurant and I made an apple pie with that and saw how I sell it to the customer, at that point of sale, it's gonna be added to the GDP. That's a good example for a finished goods. Second one is produced goods. What is produced goods? Let me put another example here. I'm a bicycle manufacturer in my country, or I'm a car manufacturer, and I'm producing a car. I'm making a car. Let's assume all the components needed for the car has bought from outside the country. Maybe I need tires, engines, a lot of body parts and everything. I bought it all from other country, but I'm producing a car with all these components as a final product. I'm making this car as a final product to sell it within my country. In that case, the production happened in this country, and that car I'm selling it to the customer. At that point of sale also, because the car is produced within the country and the final production happened within the country, so the value of the car will be added to the GDP. And the third one, the production or services must be happened within the country. It cannot be imported. Like we say at the second example, if I'm an importer who import the components for the car and selling it to the production company, in that point of sale, it never gonna add it to GDP, the value of that sale or the value of the product. Suppose I'm importing some windshield and selling it to a car manufacturer in that country. In that case, the windshield has produced somewhere outside the country. I'm just an importer here and just importing from some other country and selling it to the production unit. In that point of sale, because of the production happened in some other country, that value cannot be added to the GDP. So that's the final condition which says the production must happen within the country itself. Now let's look at the formula to calculate the GDP. GDP equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Here, C is consumed goods. Whatever consumption we had in that specific time period where we are calculating the GDP, that means that represents C. I is an investment spending. There are a whole lot of people who invested in the businesses or in share market, stock market, whatever investment happened within that specific time. That represents I. G is government spending. It can be included government salaries, government invested in infrastructures, whatever government spending represents G. And X minus M is a net export value. X stands for export and M stands for import. X minus M gives the difference of export minus import, always gives you a net export value equal to GDP. That's the formula to calculate GDP. If you put together all this value, C plus I plus G plus X minus M, or for a specific period of time, you will get that GDP for that specific period of time. That's how we calculate the GDP. It's a simple formula once you have all this value. So the outcome of this formula will be always in digits, like 25 billion, like 45 billion. But in discussions or in medias, we never heard saying we had a growth of 10 billion this year or 20 billion next year. Nothing. We never heard as such. We just hear it have a 20% growth, it had a 5% growth, it had a 2% drop down. Why? I'll put an example here to explain that. We had $100 GDP on 2022, and we had $110 GDP in 2023. We got two different values here. That means we can easily see that there is a growth or a hike or a raise or a rise in GDP of 10% from $100 to $110. That means a 10% rise happened there. And that's how we always talk in percentage. We had a 10% growth, we have 5% growth. But I have a question there. How we can really say our country has grown just by looking to different values? Because the growth might be showing, the value is showing high, maybe because of the inflation. Suppose the apple cost $10 in 2022, the same apple can cost $20 just because of inflation, not because of the value increase of the product, just because of the inflation also it happened. So in that case, how can we say the country really grown in this period of time? Why it can be just because of inflation? That's where the role of types of GDP comes in. There are two different types of GDP. One is nominal GDP. The second one is real GDP. What is nominal GDP? Nominal GDP is the same example as we take. It didn't give you the exact value, but it gives you two different values, right? $100, $110, but it did not affect it. It did not giving you the real actions happened in your country. It didn't give you what happening within the country. It just gave two values of or two calculations of two different years and says, okay, you had a hike. That kind of GDP we call nominal GDP. Let's look at the real GDP. The second one is real GDP. What is real GDP? To avoid the problem with this inflation rate, what we do is we'll take a base year. It might be a 5 years back or 10 years back. Suppose we are calculating a GDP of 2022. We take 2012. We fix 2012 as a base year and calculate the product and calculate the value of the product at that point of time. 2012. And we apply that product value in 2023. In that case, you can understand whether your production is increased or what's happening within your country. But still there is a problem. what if the population increased at the same rate? 2012 and 2022, there can be a huge difference in population. In that case also, you cannot say your country is grown just by looking at the value given by the calculation of GDP, because the population also increased. If the population also increased at the same rate, that means you just produced as per the population. To avoid that issue, what we do is we'll take GDP per capita. That means we'll take the GDP value divided by the total population of that specific time or period. So here in this video we discussed about what is the GDP, what are the factors included in this GDP, how we calculate GDP, what are the types of GDP. Hope you understand everything, and we'll see you with another video some other time. Vindum sandhikkum vare ungal nanban KP Sajar signing off.